Hey there, Ryan Kingslien here, founder of ZBrush Workshops. Just want to come in and explore this new feature of ZBrush 4R5, panel loops, a little bit more. So I've done a couple of things already. This one I created, and this is a free video that you can find at YouTube and different places. This guy over here, there he is already part of ZBrush Workshops and over at Visualarium. And just documenting the process of creating the face, hair, and then getting in and starting to experiment with panel loops. This is my first take on it. So now what I want to do is get in and start to explore this a little bit more from what I know is Pixologic's perspective. They're probably going to want some hard surface vehicles, things like that. But I need to warn you of something, and that's I'm not in my recording studio back in Los Angeles, so I'm not able to get you really good audio on this. You're going to hear some background noise. I'm in my temporary office in New Delhi, India, and this is ground floor, and the kids are home from school. so you're going to hear them in the background. They're adorable, but well, everybody's loud in India, so there you go. So let's see what we can do with this, maybe some kind of bike, some kind of vehicle, and Pixologic's already set the groundwork for a lot of this. So let me remind you of one really important thing, and that's the feature grid. The feature grid is really going to be something that you want to be paying attention to, and so I'm going to just pull this off to the side and start talking about that. The feature grid is really the core of ZBrush as I see it. Okay, there are soft surface, soft form organic, there's hard surface, that's motorcycles, cars, things like that, mech dudes. Then there is, and I'm going to call this freehand this time, freehand or loose, and then there's controlled at the bottom. This is the matrix where ZBrush really lives. Every feature gets some element of this in its thinking process. And you'll remember up here at the top, this is the standard brush. And this is where everything started. Okay, so ZBrush started way up here. And it was a really smart move on their part, because guess who's down here at the bottom? Guess who's taken up all of this space of hard surface controlled? Okay, I'm not going to name names, but I'll tell you, it's got something to do with the dark side over here. Okay, they own half the, if not more, the patents related to this. That's an exaggeration, but not the dark side part, but the owning patents part. But when Pixologic started, they did something really cool. They were like, well, this is done. Okay, now companies, there's been a lot of companies that went in and tried to get into this hard controlled area, and that's because that's where all of the IP was. This is where all the technology was. Everybody knew how to do edge loops, polygon modeling, curves, NURBs. There was already how do I say it? There were a bunch of libraries for programmers to just kind of pull from it. A lot of it's open source. But nobody was up here figuring out how to use a sculpting brush and create really soft organic stuff. And so what you've seen Pixologic do over the years with each version is they start extending this. And they went down here, tried to get into the controlled stuff at one point, and now you're starting to see them get back up here into what is really the holy grail of 3D sculpting. Hard surfaces done freehand. If you can nail that, you own the planet in terms of 3D sculpting. And that's what they're doing. They own this planet. So let me just break this up just so you understand the thinking. We're going to come in, let's say this is STD, clay brush comes this way, polish brush comes this way. Okay, backtrack, if you ever tried that, that goes this way. Not their strength. Okay, it didn't really work out. I mean, I'm sure they're happy with it, but it didn't work for me. Polish works for me. Clay works for me. But it's not enough to just have a brush, you also have to have these features. Okay, so you'll see they've started to create mesh generation features. Now Z-spheres were up here. Okay, you weren't really doing hard surface with Z-spheres at all. But then shadow box. came about. Okay, and shadow box is still freehand, but it started to move towards being able to do hard surface, things like that. And then they added groups loops, right? And then Dynamesh. So Dynamesh basically crossed Z-spheres off the map in my life, went over here. And so the idea was is you create something with Dynamesh or Shadowbox. You come in and you use features like groups, loops, and then now panel loops. Mesh extraction, all that stuff. There's this movement in this direction. Now this is a messy screen because I'm writing this as I think it. But this is what we're talking about. So I know this is a lot of theory I just threw at you, but if you understand this, you understand a lot about ZBrush, and you understand a lot about the artist. How do you develop tools for an artist? Tools that an artist would use. Okay, so I don't know exactly what I'm doing here. I feel like a motorcycle is going to get me in trouble. So I don't know if I really want to do a motorcycle. More than anything, I want to do a something that's just got some simple forms. There we go. See how easy that was to just close that? Cool. Okay, and what else would we want? Let's throw something else in here. Close the bottom. Let's use rotate. Pull that out. No, let's do this. That's what I was needing to do. Okay, so that's just a real basic skeleton. Now we need to get in here and start making something out of all of this. So let's start looking at different pieces. Let's say, yeah, Control Shift. Okay, this works with visibility, which I think is kind of beyond awesome. Let's come in and I'm going to control, oops, that's from before. I'm going to control, start to mask out a seat. Control W will create the panel, or you can press Control Shift E and you get a really nice form, but Control Shift E is not going to work when these things are hidden. So it's not really necessary to do that. Also, I am going to turn Mask by Polygroup on so that my my divisions don't overlap, if you know what I mean. It means I can just get nice clean polygroups created there. Let's go all the way to the back, down, and then see if that works. Control W. And let's give this, oops. Control W. That's kind of interesting. Not sure what that'll do. Let's take a look at some of these other guys. Control W. Let's see what that's going to do. And here I'm going to mask that out. And I think we're going to have to divide that to be able to get what I really want. That's not quite what I want. Let's do this. We're going to say backface masking. That way I can be a little bit more aggressive and it shouldn't affect too much. Shouldn't. Operative word. You can also come in and start to flatten this, or let me see if they still have it in here. Trim adaptive, trim dynamic. I'm going to use trim dynamic, but I'm going to come up into my picker and I'm going to grab depth and say I want to flatten it right there. Got to also choose my orientation. Make it flat. There you go. Let's do the same thing with that. I'm going to say it once. That may or may not work. Control W. Gets me better. Let's mask off some more. In fact, let's show everything so we can, that actually works. Control W. Okay. And then let's get a little control panel up in there. Control Shift E. No, that's going to give me some trouble, I know it. Let's make sure that all of that is done. Different group. Alright, it's being a problem. Okay. Anything else I can think of? Let me see, I'm going to try something. It's just come into me. Visibility. I'm going to shrink this and then group visible. That's going to give me a little rim. So, let me do the same thing here. Visibility, shrink. Polygroup, group visible. So, that's interesting how that works. And we could probably do that in a couple of places. Visibility, shrink. So it's this whole confluence of features that Pixologic's been working on that are pretty amazing. So I'm going to also divide this. Clear any mask. I'm going to divide it once, twice. Let's just do it once. I'm going to delete lower. Press Control. I'm going to go into dots and let's select a different alpha. See if I can get a shape that I want. Nope. Control Shift E. It's possible, but Control Shift E is going to cause me some issues at this resolution level. It's just not enough. So I got to be very careful, but I could try something there. Control W. Control Shift E. It's interesting. I don't know exactly what it'll do. And same thing here. It's kind of nice. Cool. Now we're getting into the experimental stuff. I like that better anyways. Okay, and anything else? No. So, now I can come in. I lied. Now I can come in and start to really mess with this. So let's go into edge loop. Panel loop, I'm going to set this to 0.07. And I'm going to set my polish all the way to 100. And I like this bevel profile and panel loop it. And that looks a little on the crazy side. Maybe it's because I set it to 5. Let's try that one more time, Ryan. Alright. So it looks neat, looks interesting, right? You know, it's kind of like, it's got something. But this is just the beginning. Now you got to go in with the move brush, with mask by polygroup on, and also inflate. You know, there's a bunch of stuff. In fact, I'm going to use inflate, and I'm going to temporarily inflate some things, and also some edges. Okay, and this is where that edge loop would have been really nice. But I'm not going to sweat that too much right now. Polish can be used to fix up a lot of that. Yeah, I'm going to make a mess of that just so I can show you something. And then I'm going to switch over to move, try to keep this a little bit more precise. Turn back face masking off. Okay, and then let's take a look at these guys. H polish. Or just a regular old polish brush will do a lot. And this is still relatively low res. Okay, and polish. We're still getting mask by polygroup on, and we can divide this. Start to create something nutty. Okay, now Pixelogic would have put on one of these nice little yellow doohickeys. And then we just keep moving, and there's a bunch of tools from here. But I tell you what, I'm doing this really quick. I have no idea what I'm doing. Still kind of looks like I got no idea what I'm doing. But get in here and experiment with this. So let's do a quick recap, okay? I needed to really get in and play with more of these. I couldn't just leave it at that one intro I did. Let's undo that, Ryan. That's probably not a well placed. I'm just having a fun time messing with these forms. Come on. Gotta hold my cursor here. It's the Cintiq interaction that's causing this. Okay. Let's move that in a little. Hold the cursor, Ryan. Good job. In fact, can we turn that into a bit of a shovel? Bit of a luxury cruiser. I don't know, that's pretty awesome that we're able to pull it out so easily. You can pull these panels out a little too. I don't know about pulling that out because that's right near the crotch area. It doesn't sound like a good time. Don't know about that. Those should go in. Alright, you're probably getting bored of hearing me talk to myself. And you have seen the bulk of the features that I really wanted to show you. So I got to do one summary real quick, so just give me a second. Alright, that just got a lot more interesting. And I'll pull that out to match. Now he's got a place for his feet. And maybe some control. Let's do that a little lower. So I can just control how these are layered on top of each other. And if I use the brush right, and if it's not used right, I still got polish to come in and help me get something. You want a bit of a shovel head, a little bit of a shark look there. Cool. And let's make that a little aggressive. Alright, a lot more to be done. Particularly not happy with the way this one's a little too, but, oh, let's turn those picker options off. Continuous and continuous. I love this brush. It's like, I just can't explain it. I hated it, and I loved it. Alright, good luck with everything you're working on here. This is a quick introduction, so here is my summary. What did we use? Let me get rid of this big, huge thing. There we go. And well, let's just go from here. What did we use? Okay, we used panel loops. But panel loops used one thing. It used groups, right? But in order to use groups, we used masks. So we used groups from masks, let's say. And the process for that was Control plus W, or Control plus Shift plus E. Okay, this is the edge loop feature. That's older. All right, and then once we had the panel loops, then we used move, inflate, polish, all these little tiny, all these brushes basically, and then we had mask by poly group on. So again, everything's by group. But then we also had this variant where we used visibility. So you could say this one fits right in there. We used visibility and then group visible. And then say shrinking in there. So we shrunk it, we grouped visible, and then we had a whole different set of polygroups to work with. And that was one of the ways that we were able to kind of get a little bit of a round piece in there. And I think we also tried it up in here, I can't remember. But panel loops in and of itself, all this is doing is extracting groups, but all of this other stuff, move, inflate, polish, group visible, shrink, mask by poly group, control W, all of that stuff set the groundwork for this to be a really fantastic feature. And you don't even need to get in and do all this stuff down here. Only thing you want to do is keep in mind, keep your polish at about 100 if you're going to do what I did here. And that's it. It's a fantastic way of creating hard surface stuff fast, but then also once you've created it, being able to edit and manipulate and adjust it. That's really the key. The workflow allows you to use groups continuously through the entire process, which is something that was more difficult before. So I hope you enjoyed. Good luck with your sculpting, and talk to you soon.